Hey guys, for those of you with a Kohler steam generator, I want to give you some information, help you troubleshoot your unit and not spend $2,000 to $3,000 with parts and labor or even a new unit. This unit here is a Kohler 5529. It's a 9 kilowatt steam generator, and they have different wattages based on the size of your shower. This is good up to 240 square feet. The next one up is an 11 watt 5531, and they go down in wattage as well. But the premise of how this works, this is their third generation unit. This is actually made by Kohler at their factory in-house, and they have most of the parts available to you on the Kohler website, and you can buy them through them or through a parts distributor. This unit over here is a Kohler 1733, which is the second generation. So this is the generation before the one I just showed you, which was the Gen 3, which is the 5529 series. This is the 1733, which is the Gen 2 series. Now this unit here was made by a company in Texas called Thermosol that was outsourced. And they can get you a few parts. Kohler has no parts, and the previous way to fix these was to mail this entire unit into Kohler or into Thermosol, whichever. I don't know who, but they would take it apart and fix it and send it back to you. So now Kohler with their Gen 3 decided to make it in-house, not outsource it, and keep most of the parts. Now with those of you with the Gen 5, the Air 5 message, it's one of two things. It's going to be an over temperature condition or a low water condition in the tank. Now that could be a real low water condition, or it could be a false condition due to a faulty switch. So this here is a temperature fuse, and it detects an over temperature condition. And that's actually the issue I had with this one. So the temperature fuse would falsely cut off the unit about 30 to 60 seconds. Once the steam got up to temp, it would cut it off because it was sensing a false condition and protected it. Now, as far as finding the temperature sensor for this unit, I've reached out to Thermosol, and good luck. They'll do one of two things. They say you can bypass the thermal fuse and just use the water level indicator as your safety, and that's about it. Or you can take this unit, and for about $1,000, they'll give you a swap out unit to one of the new Thermosol units made by them, and they'll just ask you to send this one back, and that's going to be about $1,000. Your choice. If you're on a Gen 3, then you can go to Kohler and get most of the parts. So here's your temperature fuse, and it is wired in series with this piece right here, and this is the water level indicator. So when it's in the tank and there's no water in it, the level switch is in this condition. So that's opening the circuit. And then as the water rises, it closes the circuit, energizes the entire circuit, and allows the contactor to kick on to energize the heating coil, which is inside the chamber. Basically just a small water heater, large toaster, and it just heats up the water until it steams and then spits it out of that tube right there. And this is your drain tube. So in this unit here on the 5529, I actually had a bad level switch. One of those little nipples broke off, which caused this piece to not be in place. So you had to get this. So as the water level rises, circuit closes. Okay, we've got water. We'll allow the heating element to turn on. Once the heating element turns on, if it gets too hot in there because it boils off all the water, or it gets too hot for whatever reason as a safety, the thermal switch would open the circuit and cut off the unit, giving you an Air 5. So that's your two issues that go into the circuit that generates an Air 5. It's either a $37 part here that you can get from Kohler, or a $220 part or so, which does not include this piece of brass. It does not include the orange wires, which is the solenoid for the power flush. It only includes that mechanical stop, and that's how the water actually cuts off. So as this flow, just like in your toilet, right? As water comes in from your supply line and comes in, as it fills it up, it just has a little gasket, and that causes it to cut off as the water level rises and no more water gets into the steam generator. Then as your steam generator is energized and it starts to burn down the water because it's burning off the steam, this opens up, water spits out of the orifice, comes into and continues making steam. But if the water level did get too low for real and it got blocked, maybe you've got some debris or some issues where you can't get supply in, then the level switch will open up, right? Open the circuit and turn off the contactors to de-energize the heating coil. So this part I got from Thermosol. This is about $100 shipped. To me, it's about a $10, $15 part. I'm going to look to see if I can find one on like Ferguson or Amazon or something, but I know this is not $100. So if I do find that, link in the description. And if you do have it where you don't have an Air 5, but you're getting water coming into the steam head and dripping, you're like, what's going on there? Well, that's because that little, see if I can get it there. You can just see that black gasket, and that gasket seals up against that orifice with the float. And again, as the float rises, that's what cuts off the water. So if it's not sealing, where that presses that gasket up against that orifice, that's why you're going to get a dribble of water, and eventually it'll just push itself up to the top of the tank. It'll fill the tank all the way up, and it'll come out of your plumbing and just fill all your plumbing up until it comes out into the shower and drips. So $200 if you want a whole new part. If you want to try to fix that with some type of high temp sealant to get that to stop leaking, which this one has a leak, and that part from Thermosol to replace this entire float assembly is $550. So on the 1733, I would take it apart and try to put some type of sealant in that orifice to plug that sucker up. By the way, I did try to remove the level switch, and you can see it cracked. So I don't know if that's intentional or unintentional by Kohler. But this here is your solenoid. That's a $350 part from Kohler. So if the power flush isn't working, this is just turning on the solenoid to allow, it's electromechanical, so a magnet pulls in the spring, allows the water to come in. It then fills the tank from the drain. This is upside down, but there's this piece of supply line, corrugated steel supply line. By the way, that failed on this unit. So if you've got an older unit and you're generating a leak, could be a supply line. Now you can get this from Kohler. It's 3/8 inch compression on both ends. Those are going to be tough to find at Home Depot or Lowe's, but you can order it, or you can get some bushings and fittings at Home Depot or Lowe's to adapt to it. Anyhow, supply line comes into the bottom right here, connects into there at the drain, and then allows water to push in from the bottom, filling the entire cavity, because this is the bottom, right? So water's going to fill all the way up. It's going to pee it out. This is your steam, and that goes into the shower. Then it'll flush it for about 7 minutes or so. Power clean cycle is 7 minutes of flushing water. Then the heating element will engage, burn off the water into steam, and then keep doing that for about 35 minutes, and then it should be good. You have to run a power clean cycle once every 1,000 minutes, and that is done by holding the timer up, timer down, and the timer button. So for you those who don't know how to engage in a power clean cycle, you hold the up arrow, the down arrow, and this timer all at the same time for 5 seconds. And once you release it after 5 seconds, this will come on and say PCL on, and that starts the cycle. And you'll notice for 7 minutes, water will come out of here, spill into the drain, trying to clean out the tank. And now the tank on this 1733, when I had it, was filthy. And for those of you who don't know, which I did not know, this is on a 50 amp circuit. So when it's energized, it's using about 44 amps of draw. And I found out through the customer care line that actually on this 1733 unit, right in here, there's a tiny little heater blanket. You might be able to see it with these wires. And they actually connect on the side. You see those two little wires? That's a little thin strip heating on the exterior of the stainless steel tank that keeps the water inside the tank at about 170 degrees all the time, 24/7, 365. It's heating that water to 170 degrees. And that's why when you hit the power button, 60 seconds later, you're getting steam coming out, because it's already at 170 and you just have to take it to 212 and then it produces steam. So I did put an ammeter on one of the lines, because it's 240, 2 lines of 120. and it only draws 0.33 amps. So a third of an amp all the time, which isn't that bad. I figured it's about $8 a year, but still, you may not know that. And this is the 1733 side. And so I bypassed the temperature fuse here and connected just the level switch. And you can see the level switch is down here. You can see the heating elements, and just above that, if you can see that brass nut that's just above that white cap. So the white cap's the two heating elements, right? And then that's a 1/4 inch NPT. Now you can take that out and plug it and bypass the temperature fuse, which is what I did here just to test it. And once I bypassed that, the level switch is working, and then it kicked on. Steam cycle ran fine. This one's the opposite. The level switch was bad, and the temperature switch is good. One last thing, on this Kohler 5529, there's an LED light on top of it. This unit does not have it. Normally, there's a light about right about here on the junction box on the 5529. Slightly different junction box, but right about here. If that light is on, that's telling you that the thermal fuse is intact. There's actually a fuse in line with that. So if that fuse isn't working, that green light will not be on. So if the green light is not on and you're getting an error 5, then you can probably suspect that it's going to be this $37 part, which is your temperature fuse available from Kohler. And again, you cannot get that from Thermosol. This does not have a light, so it's one of the two, and I can't get the thermal fuse. If the green light is on and it still doesn't work, then it's going to be the level switch because the circuit's not complete. And that's green light saying that the temperature fuse is engaged, just how they have it wired. And then the level switch is going to be the culprit, and you can try to find this part. Again, I got this from Thermosol for 85 or 90 bucks shipped. That's way too expensive. So that's a 12-minute ramble. I hope this solved your problems. If you've got a 1733 series Kohler, 9 kilowatt, but they went, I think, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and they did the same thing here. This is made by Thermosol somewhere in Texas, and this is made by Kohler somewhere in Wisconsin. I think their Kohler factory in Wisconsin. Same thing, both sides, and the keypad actually will work for either. So if you have an old 1733 and you can find a 5529, you can simply take it out and plug it back in. If you do have an issue here, here with the 1733, your cheapest bet is going to be called Thermosol. See if they'll do a goodwill exchange, and they'll send you a new steam generator that's going to be new. You send this one back, that'll cost you $1,000. Best I could get from Kohler was 50% off retail, and it was $3,600 retail, and they would give me 50% off for $1,800, all because of what probably is a $10 part, or at least a $37 part. And if I can't get this level switch out of here, I'm going to have to eat $200. So wish me luck, and if you have any questions, I'll be sure and answer them.